Think about how many customers you've had for 20, 25, or 30 years. My guest today, Cody Lowry, has done exactly that. And he's accomplished that because he is an expert at building relationships. We all know how important relationships are in construction. And Cody is not from a construction background, but the insights he shares into human behavior and how to build relationships are going to be extremely applicable to you. Cody is a great storyteller. He's going to talk about how he got himself into carrying the torch at the Olympic Games. He got gifted a Super Bowl ring by an NFL Hall of Famer, and he even got an autographed baseball from the Pope. So I think you'll find our conversation quite entertaining, but also very insightful. We'll talk about how to build a personal brand, how to build relationships, and how to set your company apart from others in your industry so that you can achieve the goals that you are looking to accomplish. Enjoy my interview with Cody, and feel free to share this interview with other people. Thanks for listening today. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Cody, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Eric. Glad to be here.
It's interesting. You've been in business for many years, and you were telling me just before we went live that you've had clients for 20, 25, 30 years. You have them currently. What do you do to build those types of long-term relationships with people?
It goes back to when I was a little kid. I like people. I built relationships, and something that's taken me on into my business career. And I've built my business on relationships. And I've got what I call the secret sauce: building relationships, get the clients to trust you, and then never let them down. I might also add, Eric, that, I'm in the automotive arena, and the tier 1 and tier 2 and tier 3 world. And it's got to be in advertising, it's one of the hardest segments because, if they have a bad month or a bad quarter, the first person they want to get rid of is the agency and bring other agencies in, do a presentation. And so we have built relationships with our clients to the point where when I go into the market, they don't want me to stay at the hotel. I've got 3 clients that want me to stay at their house. And I must tell you, I would much prefer to stay at a hotel. But with that said, never let them down, right? I'll stay there. And over the years, I've built relationships with these clients. I'm invited to weddings. I'm invited to graduations. I mean, I'm part of the family.
When you say trust, what do you mean?
Well, I mean trust. I mean, I'm president of a retail division, and
and what type of company?
It's advertising.
Advertising, okay.
Traditional and digital, and it's about 115 people. But over the years, I've had account executives come to me, Eric, and they'll say, "Oh my God, we messed up. We did this or we did that. What should we do?" And you know what you do? In my business, there's not even a white lie is acceptable. Okay, right. A little white lie, and so you tell the truth and you own up to it. Those are the kinds of things. When you tell them you're going to do something, you do it. There's something over and above, maybe within your scope of work. You're there for them. You do it.
You have people reporting to you now, correct?
Correct.
How do you know that they're dealing with the clients the way that they should and they're addressing issues when they come up?
Yeah, well, that's pretty easy because we have a meeting every morning and we go over every client. And, a lot of the things that we discuss, Eric, are these issues, and right. We cover them in the meeting and correct them. And, we're on top of our business. We know our people, we know our accounts, and we know what has to be done, and we do it. And, we tend to it. We mow the lawn every morning.
You mow the lawn every morning. So that's interesting because I know a lot of people in the markets that listen to this podcast, they're in construction. They understand the importance of meetings, but sometimes they struggle with that meeting discipline. What have you done over the years to instill that meeting discipline in your company and to make sure that you're staying on top of mowing the lawn, so to speak?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of putting that in place as far as the morning meetings, and then, sticking with it. And sometimes that's difficult. And I must tell you, I'm not in every meeting, but that meeting happens every morning. And there's probably about 20 some people that are on that. Well, now it's Zoom. We're not in the meeting room anymore.
Right.
And then I have an opportunity to get with somebody and review that later.
Excellent. Okay, so you said the secret sauce is, repeat the secret sauce again to me real quick.
All right. Building relationships, getting the client to trust you, and then never, ever letting them down.
Think about that one client that you currently have that you've had for 30 years. What is it about that relationship that has caused it to endure for so long?
I think a lot of the things that we're talking about here, it's a matter of being there when they need you. We actually have clients that are, especially at the tier 3 level. If I could just explain real quickly to your audience, tier 1 is the automotive manufacturer, tier 2 is regional advertising, and tier 3 is like your local Toyota dealer around the corner. And some of these dealers are pretty big. And this particular client we're talking about, we've had him for 30 years. And, this guy is pretty intense, and I don't get surprised if I look down at my phone on a Sunday and I see him calling and he's got a problem. I'm his go-to person. Sometimes it's not even, under the heading of advertising and marketing. It's a related issue that he's got at the dealership. And he trusts me enough to pick up and kind of brainstorm with him.
Are you okay with doing that? And the reason I ask is sometimes what senior executives want to do is they want to take themselves out of that relationship picture to do other parts of the business and to hand that off to junior people. What's your perspective on that?
So I think it worked. This client that I'm referencing, obviously, that's not one that's what we call a legacy account. They spent a lot of money, and it's best that I'm involved. With that said, I'm headed off to Chicago Tuesday, and I'll have 3, account executives that'll be part of the presentation. And so I won't be the day-to-day person, but 30 years ago, that's when I was starting out and built the relationship, and they don't want to move on to somebody else.
Okay, so let me take you back 30 years then. 30 years ago, you were probably in your early 20s, right?
Oh, no, I think I was about 15.
Yeah, right. In construction, there's tons of people who build, there's tons of subcontractors, general contractors. In the client's mind, often one contractor is just the same as the other. And what you're talking about in terms of making yourself different is an advertising campaign. What other ways can someone set themselves apart so that they distinguish themselves from every other general contractor or sub who's running around trying to win a project?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Part of in that book is how to build your own personal brand. Okay, what differentiates you from the competition? And you got to figure that out what it is. Sergio Zyman, who is a marketing guy for Coca-Cola, said everything that you do either adds or subtracts to the value of your brand. And of course, he's talking about, Coca-Cola at the time, which was doing 66 billion or 33 billion, but their brand was worth 66 billion. But you also apply that to your own personal brand, and it comes down to trust. So let me just stop you there for a moment.
Let me just stop you there for a moment, Cody. What you're saying then is one of the keys to building relationships, if I'm hearing you right, is developing your own personal brand. Did I hear that right?
Absolutely. You heard that right.
Okay, let's explore that a little bit. First, tell me what you mean by a personal brand.
Well, for me, I've always had this sense of humor. I actually auditioned for Saturday Night Live one time, and so I've made that part of my repertoire.
Right.
So people genuinely like it, like you were mentioning presentations, and I'm going up to this one in Chicago, but there's a lot of times where, if I'm not in the room, they really want me, and they want me for my sense of humor. I can take a dull meeting and make it pretty lively.
So that's part of your personal brand. So let's say I'm in business development, I'm a construction business development professional, or even I'm an executive, and maybe I'm not that humorous. Maybe there's other aspects of me that do set me apart. What can I do to develop a personal brand that would actually help me to either sell more work or build more long-term relationships?
Well, I think first and foremost is be prepared. I mean, I don't care if it's that first meeting or if it's something with final plans, and and I really don't care how big the business is. You've got to build that relationship immediately. And I always
Okay.
tell people you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So very, very important. So number one, I would make sure that they know me in the market for somebody who comes in and they're very, very prepared. Trust is part of everybody's brand. If they trust you, they're going to do business with you. And if they like you, they're going to do business with you. And so what are some of the things you can do to make sure that happens? I can tell you that when I go into a room for a major presentation, I know the players. I know what colleges they went to. I know things about their kids. So
Stop there. Hold on. That's really important. I don't want to run past that.
All right.
Because when we think of preparation, we think maybe in terms of, if you're bidding a project, you're going to have your act together, you're going to have slides ready, you're going to be able to talk about the nature of the project, but you're going a little level deeper there in terms of knowing the people.
And knowing the people, that's so very important. I mean, if you don't know the people, you're really not totally prepared.
What are some techniques or methods that you use to find out about the people before you get into your presentations, particularly if you've never met them before? Give me some specific details there, please.
Right. So obviously, we've got, digital on one hand, but we've got other people that have done business with them before, and we will ask the right questions and, come away with the right answers. And so Eric walks into a room and I'm making a presentation to Eric, and I don't know it doesn't really matter if you're a national, regional, or a local construction company, but I say to Eric, Eric, you went to Notre Dame. I said, my brother went to Notre Dame, and, and so I carry on a conversation. So now I'm getting to know this guy as opposed to just some person he'd never met and walks into the room.
Right. So that really, what's interesting about that, Cody, is it doesn't really have to do with, whether you have the same personality as you do in terms of your humor. That has to do with about caring about other people and letting them know that you care about them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have a Super Bowl ring that Hank Stram gave me because I care, just what you're talking about.
Okay. Now, Hank Stram, is he with the Chiefs?
Well, he was with the Chief. Unfortunately, he left us a few years ago. But
oh, wait, you're a Chiefs fan?
What's that?
You're a Chiefs fan?
Well, I'm a Chiefs fan, and I'm also a Buccaneer fan. That's where I live now, and I got disappointed last night.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a Niner fan, so I got disappointed a few months ago.
Oh, okay. So
that's beautiful.
Hank Stram, we had been friends for 25 years. I won't go into the whole story. We were having dinner one night, and I always worried about him. I don't know if you remember him, but
just tell the audience who Hank Stram is, because some of them may not know.
Hank Stram was in the first Super Bowl and the fourth Super Bowl. He won the fourth one against the Minnesota Vikings, and the NFL. He was the first coach they ever put a microphone on. And They did it for a lot of reasons. He's very outgoing, what have you, but he was always, they knew he wouldn't say the F-bomb or whatever, but he was, come on, boy, hey, ref, how can 5 of you guys make a call? What? Come on. And he was so unbelievable in that NFL film. And in any event, we got to be great friends. We did commercials together, and he would call me, actually. He and Jack Buck they were doing CBS football games, and he would call me at halftime. Hey, Cody, good wreck, you blah, blah, blah. So he came to Florida one time, and we were having dinner, and he was a guy where everybody approached, and he had this thing going on and that thing going on, and I didn't see value to any of them. And he said to me, he was telling me about this big deal he's getting involved with, and I thought, well, this is a good time to ask him. I said, Coach, are you doing okay financially? He looked at me, and he started laughing. He goes, boys, whatever brought that on? That's the way he talked. And I said, well, you've always got these deals going on. They don't seem to go anywhere. And he went on to tell me that when he was with the Kansas City Chiefs, that Lamar Hunt took very, very good care of him. And then he had the deal with CBS. And he said, I just like being out there and kind of stirring it up. And almost in the next breath, he looks at me, kind of pauses. He said, I'm going to make a big man out of you. I said, oh, yeah, how are you going to do that, Coach? He said, how would you like a Super Bowl ring? And I went, whoa. Now, I got to tell you, I never thought I'd have a Super Bowl ring. I never coveted a Super Bowl ring. You said the magic words. You got to let people know you care. And I let him know in that moment that I just wasn't a groupie. I really did care. And that's how I got a Super Bowl ring.
What role persistence and determination play in terms of building that brand and building those long-term relationships?
It's something that I learned in life. when I was a little kid and 11 years old, I was selling newspapers. And if I'd say, Miami News, sir. And if you walk by, I'd say, would you buy a paper if I told you where you got your shoes, what state you were born in, how many birthdays you've had? They turn around and look at me. I said, well, you got your shoes on your feet. You were born in the state of infancy, and you've only had one birthday, the day you were born. So at 11 years old, I was learning how to be persistent.
Right.
So I don't think you just wake up one morning and say, well, I'm going to change my whole personality. I'm going to go from a real mild-mannered person to somebody that's, charging and has all of this persistence.
So by personal brand, do you mean what people, when they think of you, what pops into their mind? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Personal brand is?
Absolutely. In fact, Jeff Bezos, I will quote him, maybe it's a paraphrase quote, but he said, your brand is what people say about you when you're out of the room.
Right. Okay. Right there.
It's not what you say it is. It's what other people say it is.
Okay. So that's very important. So it's really interesting because sometimes you see with companies a disconnection between what they put forth as their brand and what people say about them. I think of someone like United Airlines over the years, they've put forward this customer service brand, and yet I fly United, or I used to, and I was like, come on, man, there's just a real disconnection there.
Yeah. So we teach branding and positioning, for companies, and, it's something that it's got to be real. And from a positioning standpoint, if you say that you're the safest airline, or you say that you're the fast, you've got to live up to it. And everybody's got to buy into it, from the people that are answering the phone to the executives at the top.
If I own a construction company, or if I run a construction company, what should I be doing to determine my positioning in the marketplace?
Well, to your earlier point, it can't be BS. And you've got to really, and this presupposes that we have, a very successful company.
Yes. Let's just suppose that we do. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I've had this, I'll sit down with the employees and let's talk about the company. What separates you? What are you proud of that this company does? And then I will get the information from the employees as deep as I can go to the CEO. Yep. And then I do my evaluation. We come back to them with our recommendation.
I think one thing that you touched on there that I find intriguing is that sometimes what the employees will say about your company will blow you away in a positive way. They'll say things that you've never even thought about. And those insights can be extremely useful in terms of helping you to create a narrative when you're looking to position your company and when you're looking to get into a marketplace and win more projects.
Right, absolutely. And I've been in, we all know people, and we've all run by some CEOs. They'll walk into a room, and well, sometimes it looks like they want everybody to give their opinion. They're on an agenda, they're on a mission. And actually in the book, I tell people to speak up.
That's good. That's good. Yeah. So let me ask you, why do you think people struggle in building relationships?
And today more than ever, we live in the most connected society in the world, and yet we're more disconnected now than we've ever been. When I had this company that purchased my company, the first thing I did was no cell phones in the meeting room, not with me. It worked. At least I can engage with them without them looking at their text under the table and all that kind of stuff.
So that's very interesting. So there's a takeaway in terms of building relationships is if you're having a face-to-face meeting, to remove the cell phones so that you can concentrate on the agenda at hand.
There's a paragraph in the book about just that. These kids come in, and I don't know about you, but I've been in situations where these kids come in, they're dressed like, they're going to a rodeo or something, and, holes in their jeans and what have you. And I get it. It's a different world, but still, I think it was Botany Close who said, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And, that's what these young kids need to do when they go in for an interview, and they've got to be prepared, and they've got to, put those cell phones away, and then have a good understanding of the business and what they're all about.
That's definitely one way that as a younger person, you could set yourself apart from other people in your generation, is by having a different relationship to the communication devices and showing folks that perhaps are older and maybe a little disconcerted or disenchanted with the way that people behave with their mobile devices. If you show yourself a little bit different there, that's definitely one way that you can set yourself apart.
Oh, absolutely.
How are you working with the COVID-19 and the distance working and the remote working? How are you working with younger people, helping them to learn your business and helping them to grow even when they can't be around you all the time and sort of learn by osmosis. What have you found to be effective there?
Yeah, well, I got to tell you that I can't say that that's necessarily the case for us
Okay.
and me in particular, because we have Zoom meetings twice a day. And one is kind of the catch up. And I didn't always get in these meetings, but now I can sit in and listen to everybody. And, I do it with a cup of coffee, and I don't have to run out and go, to the airport or what have you. So, and then I usually have at least 2 Zooms a day. And I almost feel like I'm more connected to my people now than I was going to a brick and mortar building.
That's interesting. Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
I guess because, again, our morning meetings, it's not something I was always involved in. And now I look forward to these morning meetings because it's very easy for me.
Oh, I see.
So I can sit and I can mentor, if you will, or give advice, or, I try to just sit back and let them do their meeting without injecting a lot of my personal thoughts. But, even today we had an issue. And so I don't know. I almost, Eric, I think I'm maybe a little closer right now. And, I think a lot of companies are reevaluating, the brick and mortar.
You mentioned a couple of times the book that you've published. What book is that?
So it's called Schmooze, What They Should Teach at Harvard Business School. It's been endorsed by Alan Dershowitz and Hal Steinbrenner and, some pretty big names. It's a book about being kind to all and being able to laugh at yourself and building your brand, and then being relevant. And I gave this advice to a billionaire, and he took me up on it because he was thinking of retiring. And he asked me if I was ever going to retire. And I said, no, that I wanted to stay relevant.
Huh.
And by that, I meant is that, I could retire and play golf and look at the stocks and what have you, but I want to stay in the game. And he told me about 6 months later, he said that's the best advice he ever had, because he was thinking about checking out. Now he's got 8 companies and, so on and so forth.
How do you stay relevant as you get later on in your career?
Well, I talk to the Erics of the world on, with the podcast, and that's always good. Of course, that's a new venture for me because of the book. But I stay relevant because I'm still in the game. A year ago I was in Austin, Texas, and they had the head of Google marketing, and I'm in the front row. I mean, I'm in the game. I now have 12 grandchildren, and I'm part of their lives, and they're part of my life. And I still engage with them, but it's not something where 100% of my time is spent doing that. And I just like to be part of in the action and be part of what's happening. And I feel like I'm doing that. And
so let me ask you this. What is the last thing that you learned from someone under 30 business-wise that really benefited you?
I think probably going back to my be prepared, because, and just coincidentally, his first name is Eric. I won't give his last name, but he is one of the smartest young men I've ever met. And I was pontificating about a digital process. And when you're dealing with Eric, he not only knows his side of the story, he knows yours, and he knows it better than you do. And, he kind of got me up to speed. And we are moving or living in a world that's moving so fast that it is hard for me to keep up with it as quickly as I'd like to. But I can tell you this, Eric is a guy that does. And, he's an amazing young man.
I think that's interesting, though, because as we get older, one of the keys to relevancy is staying humble and understanding that you have so much you can learn, not only from people your age or older, but people who are younger than you, and really finding out what it is from those younger folks that you can learn, and not being afraid to say, hey, what can you teach me here today?
Sure. No, I totally agree. And I think that's what Eric does for me. He is part of my life because he's helping with a lot of my digital stuff.
That's great. Well, awesome. Cody, I really appreciate you coming on the show here today. I'm going to put a link in the show notes to your book, and it's Schmooze, What They Should Teach You at Harvard Business School.
Right.
Excellent.
And it's a great read. It's an easy read. It's a funny read. And thank you so much, Eric.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity. And to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.